We're here today with Martin and Chris from RescuEAN. They've recently launched a very innovative new product. Chris, can you tell me something about the product in your hand, please?
Yes, it's basically a flow control valve which enables suitably trained divers to benefit from the use of enriched air nitrox in their diving cylinders. You simply plug the diver's low pressure hose from the BCD or the dry suit onto this end of the pod. This section of rubber tubing goes on this end of the pod into an oral nasal mask onto the injured diver's face, and you simply twist the centre section of the pod through 15-25 litres a minute to allow the flow of enriched air nitrox through the pod into the oral nasal mask on the injured diver.
As I understand it, the device is for use in situations of distress where a diver potentially has been deprived of oxygen, and his diving buddy will then use this device to use the nitrous oxide mix which is in the tank to supply some life-saving mix to the diver in distress. Yes,
in the event of there not being 100% oxygen kit available or it's exhausted, then you would then be looking to use the enriched air in any diver cylinder that may be available at the time.
If I could just come in there, basically a number of the diving certifying associations in their training manuals actually say in the event of oxygen not being available, you can give nitrox to a responsive patient through the regulator, which is the thing we actually dive with, but it's a demand valve, so therefore they need to be conscious to be able to suck on it and get the air through. Up to now, you haven't had a method of getting the nitrox that we all dive with, or a number of us dive with, into an unconscious patient in a constant flow basis, which this pod now allows it to do. So we're hoping that that will benefit safety for divers when O2 is not available or exhausted.
Understand from information back from the industry that O2 and these life-saving devices are typically only available in the large dive centres, so really this device extends this life-saving ability out to all the locations where people are diving maybe just with two together, as long as they've got one of these pieces of equipment.
Well, the essence of this when we started was Chris and I are buddy divers ourselves. We could be diving off a beach down in Lyme Regis. We don't have an O2 kit ourselves. We are diving with nitrox, which is not going very deep. Chris is considerably fitter than I am. I would be the one that needs something when we get back to the surface, or if I'm going to be the one that's going to be injured. He's got something there and then he can actually pull. He takes the pod underwater with him and basically he could set that up the second he gets onto the beach, and we've got something working before the paramedics and the ambulances arrive.
In the year since its launch, the product has had an overwhelmingly good response from important bodies within the industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, absolutely. We initially we had a great response from the Joint Services Sub-Aqua Dive Centre down at Fort Bobbysound in Plymouth. He was very impressed with the product. It was a great safety bit of kit, and he's been running a long-term test. He's had it for 14, 15 months now, and he tests it in all his rescue scenarios, and he thinks it's a fantastic bit of kit, and he carries one everywhere with him. It's also, we've had interest from the Sub-Aqua Association of Great Britain. They are actually using it in their training scenarios now. PADI International, PADI America are actually looking at working with their training department is looking at working with us to incorporate this into their training also. So we've had some very interest from some large bodies of people.
It's remarkable the number of accreditations you've picked up during the first year since launch. Would you just run through those for us, the ones that you've received?
Well, basically, as Chris mentioned earlier, the Joint Services Sub-Aqua Club have been very helpful to us, both in the training, in the testing of the product, etc. We've worked very closely with the London Dive Chamber and the medical staff and doctors up there, who have also been very helpful to us and written some very good articles and given us a lot of support in the research of it. Recently, the Sub-Aqua Association have taken it on board in their 2008 and onward training, which we're very pleased about. And at the recent dive show, they ran 8 scenario courses, scenario presentations of a rescue in the technical pool, and that was very good to see the pod being part of their training and their rescue courses, showing to all the divers that came through to the dive show. Over and above that, we've mentioned that PADI we're working with at the moment, and that's looking promising.
Recently the RNLI are showing some interest as well.
Because we greatly support the RNLI, we're going to try and do something and return and give some money to donate to them following sales of pods via their services, basically. But they're very keen on it, so we're hoping that perhaps you might even see them in the RNLI shops in various areas on the coast. We've also hopefully got some interest from a couple of the police, river police
Thames River
launches.
Police.
They're looking at it at the moment as a possibility of something that will be useful to them. You know, we've got a wide number of people out there that are looking at its various uses and finding good uses within their needs to make it work.
People have seen it, and it's very, very well put together, very, very well made. In so much so that an article we had written, we asked them to see if they could destroy it, basically. And the only way they could was to drive a van over it. And then they just cracked it. And it still worked. And that's a great selling point for this product.
Yeah, I mean,
is how well it's made.
It is very robust, and even at the dive show over the weekend, somebody actually asked us how breakable it was, and we dropped it from a couple of feet, and they went, and it survived, and then we stood on it, and it survived. So, you know, it does take a beating, and diving, unfortunately, is one of those sports where things do get bashed about quite a lot. Basically, the pod is constructed of 316 marine grade stainless steel. All the metal parts within it are very highly corrosion resistant, especially as the pod's going to get a lot of use around salt water. The outside is a very robust plastic, and the rubber caps there are really just to keep out dust and sand and anything else that can get into it. So basically, we've this particular thing has got a very good life. Diving is a hard sport. Things do get knocked. It can get scratched. It can get belted. We've had a lot of testing done where people in scenarios have got a little bit fed up that they couldn't quite work out. There had to be a solution to the scenario, otherwise it wouldn't have been set. And it's been used as a football and kicked around boats and quays. And it survived. It's been scratched a little bit, but you know, we did get one phone call on one evening that they really thought that it had been broken, but they plugged it all in and it worked perfectly, and they were very pleased with that.